All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon reviews. 4 reviews up this week. Some big ones. Not sure if this one counts. It could. Maybe it's just waiting to go viral, because it's definitely in that vein. Because first up, we have Slots&Daggers, a retro mini roguelike inside a slot machine. Steady your blade and spin. So, this is a game that touts primary influences among Slay the Spire and Balatro. Once again, those are 2 games from the indie scene that went mega viral in recent times. And this is exactly up that alley, just with a different gambling device. You know, instead of poker or, I guess, card games, yeah, you can gamble on those. You got slot machines, but it's not just slot machines. I guess technically a slot machine, but you have multiple areas. See, it's a slot machine RPG with a lot of random elements thrown in.
As expected of slot machine.
Yes. And in terms of the slot machine mechanics, it's pretty simple. Like, it's not one of those machines where you hold and have the bar and all the things like going diagonal and all that business. No, it's much more if you line up 3, or and well, in this game that's critical, because every basic square is the basic action. And the basic action, like if you get a coin, that throws money onto the table. And money allows you to either buy your roguelike items in between rounds, or use said items during a round. I.e., like if you buy... trying to remember what weapon it was, but it was a thing that could poison an enemy for 20 points, for 7 coins. By the by, poison damages your friend, and you should use it whenever possible. Because poison not only sticks around for an absurdly long time, it just counts down every turn. It also ignores defense. But putting that aside, you've got the wooden shield, which represents your defense, and you've got the dagger, which represents your basic attack. And that's what you start out with. And as you go through the game, a lot of the roguelike elements will unfurl in a couple different layers, no less. Penny is, in fact, showing off one of them right now, the modifiers. Those are framed as illegal modification chips, which will allow you to do things like gain health.
I see.
Yeah. Do absorb, better defense, more attack, that kind of thing. And those are your permanent upgrades, which cost poker chips, which you get for defeating enemies. Specifically defeating enemies. Like if you die Monster 1, you get no poker chips. And there are several levels of poker chips. And as you'd expect, each level costs more poker chips. So, it's one of those, do you want to get the 4th level of more coins? Or do you want to do the first level of, better defense? Because that costs less chips. That kind of thing. And the super expensive although admittedly not all that expensive, at least not on level 1. Like the 100 poker chip was like you get 1 revival, for example. So and those, when you buy them, they're permanent unless you can actually respec, which is nice. And your other upgrade, the internal, let's call them upgrades, are items. More items that show up either as beginning weapons or beginning shields, that kind of thing, or stuff that shows up in between rounds. Once again, it could be better shields. It could be a slingshot attack. That one is just a in-between level thing. Or the meteorites attack, another in-between level. So that's the roguelike meta game. You want to keep playing to unlock more stuff, to get better chips, and that will help you defeat the 4 lands, the 4 areas. It's not the most complicated roguelike setup in the world, but look at this thing. It shouldn't be. And a lot of the another thing, a lot of the extra attacks, defense, healing, like the slot machine healing is set up on a timer. So you gotta hit the button at the right time in order to maximize your attack, your defense, your heal. And sometimes it's easier said than done, because sometimes they'll go really quick, to the point where, no human can really judge properly. And which is the point of such a thing. And, it all works surprisingly well. Yeah. It's not Balatro levels of peanut butter and chocolate. Like,
if nothing else, I think it's a little too complex for that. I mean, Balatro does have some complex mechanics, but you don't need to know them until you get quite a ways into the game.
Right. Well, do keep in mind the RPG side of things. That's Slay the Spire talking. Really, Balatro, I think, is more in the gambling gimmick than anything else.
Yeah, Balatro, even though I know I'm playing poker.
Yes. Like I said, it's a very generalized, because nobody's going to say that slots and poker are the same thing, or even in the same ballpark, outside of the fact that you find both at the casino. I mean, poker is a much more in-depth game. Like, poker is a game you can actually use strategy for. Slot machines, that's like 95 dumb luck. And luck that's not in your favor. Strictly speaking, as a slot machine game, this is the best slot machine game that has ever existed. And it's not even close.
Because it actually does stuff?
Yes.
Other
and it's
than
also
just playing slots.
Right.
And it's interactive, other than just pull lever, receive probably no money.
Exactly. And especially that no money part. Because, what are you doing at that point? It's like, okay, even if you're a kid-friendly game, although ratings boards, specifically European ratings boards, are really touchy about that stuff these days. But still, I played, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Vegas Stakes or Caesar's Palace, one of those gambling simulator games back in the day. And, slot machines were the most boring part of that. And it was a very boring package, because, simulating a lot of casino games isn't very interesting because, the part that makes them interesting isn't feasible. But slots especially so. Because, once again, it's the most brain-dead casino game out there. So...
Are the slots fair so far as you can tell?
Mostly.
I mean, it doesn't look like they have more than about 5 possible things. So.
You can get more symbols put on them, so the farther you go, the more slots and the more harder it is to get what you want, unless you're stacking it with more of your...
Fair actually is specifically referring to the fact that sometimes things will slip because it's programmed not to get certain results too often.
If there's slipping, it looks like that'd probably be a modifier you would buy to make it slip in your favor.
Okay.
Yeah. That is a modifier you can buy in your favor. Except it's not a slip. It's a flat out, you can flip one of the spaces a certain amount of slots or ticks. Like 3 ticks or so, from what I remember. Depending on the level, I think.
I'm specifically thinking about the slots in Final Fantasy that have usually when you have a character that has the slots attack, it usually is a predetermined thing, like 60% of the time or something.
I know, that feels like the kind of thing that you'd have to burrow into the game's code to suss out.
Yeah.
Either into
the
code or we need to discuss
fast
with the
enough
developer.
that it's probably fair.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably also the fairest slot machine game that's ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how fair other slot machine games are, but you get the point, because the points, the focus, the what have you of this game isn't to rob you of your money. It's to combine a RPG roguelike set of mechanics onto a very different subset. Once again, that's it's the popular trend that's going on in the indie scene. In fact, like a cousin game to this is Ball Cross Pit, and you could argue that's not a gambling game. You're not looking at the right gambling games, like less Chuck E. Cheese and more the Boardwalk. And
yeah, pinball was absolutely a gambling thing to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, point is, it's another one of these indie fusions that I think that, like, I don't know if they made it with a specific intent of being the next Balatro, but I hope not, because that is, you want to talk about the pull of the lever. That's like the ultimate pull of the lever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know how popular this game is, other than it's certainly not reached that level of viral hit by any means. Like, nobody's talking about Slots and Daggers in the same way that they talk about Balatro, in that, you have normal ass people talking about Balatro. It's a game that they say breaks containment. Like, don't think this game's on that level, but we're not here to evaluate its fame. We're here to evaluate its quality. And yeah, this is a quality product. I'll admit, I lost interest after a while, but that's mainly because slot machines in general, I have never found to be engaging. I'm like, and I have played slot machines. I remember my aunt occupying the nickel slots for hours upon hours. And yeah, that just baffled me. Because it's like, pull the lever, pull the lever, pull the lever. It didn't provide the dopamine hits.
I think it's more of just the Skinner box of actually winning something.
Yeah, that could be it.
That's a discussion for psychology class, my friend.
Yeah. And it has, I'm just saying, slot machines, as far as gambling goes, never interested me like poker or blackjack or even craps. Craps is a really interesting game, actually. That was a surprising amount of fun. Granted, more my brother's game, but still, I had fun when I played that. To a point. The point is not to lose too much money. But we're getting off track here. Yeah, so Slots and Daggers, it's a good fusion. Maybe not the next indie superstar, but it's a good time. And a much better value for your money than any actual slot machine.
Please don't play slots.
Yes. Or if you're going to gamble responsibly.
Yeah.
Maybe less concerned about casino games these days than sports betting, but that is an entirely different topic. Oh, God. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of price, Slots and Daggers is very, very affordably priced. For a mere $8, you will be able to engage in what's probably going to be dozens of hours of slot pulling strategery.
Definitely cheaper than a trip to Atlantic City. Unless you live in Atlantic City, in which case, you do you, boss.
Yeah. Also, Las Vegas or, really the entire state of Nevada, someplace that has slots. There's actually a lot of exceptions, but we don't have time to get into that. Like I said, this is going to be a much fairer value for your money, but yeah, you're probably not going to get that Skinner box dopamine from this. But also, you're not going to be bored out of your gourd, doing a digital recreation of that game. Like, once again, I think the only reason why you saw, slot machines in casino games is because they were obligated to do it. As in, you can't have a casino game compilation without the slots, even though it's the most boring thing you could commit to Silicon ever. Either that or Pachinko.
Yeah.
But that's a rant for another day. Anyway, once again, Slots and Daggers, fine game. Would recommend.
Do you know if this game is allowed in countries outside of the U.S.? Because I know some games, even though you're not putting in real money, kind of like Pokemon Gen 1, I believe, was banned in Europe because of the fake slots game in there.
I don't think it's been submitted to ratings boards yet because this game is PC only.
Fair.
See, that's kind of a key. PC games don't necessarily need to have an ESRB or PEGI rating, though. The point is, I haven't heard anything about Slots and Daggers generating any sort of controversy.
But that is very much a thing. I mean, literally look at the Gen 1 Pokemon games. They're rated as mature now just because there is a fake slot machine.
Balatro. Balatro got hit with the M rating or the 18 plus in Europe because of the gambling mechanics for a time. Until the ratings board fucking came to their senses and realized, oh, hey, this isn't an actual gambling game, nor does it actually resemble gambling mechanics as they exist in real life.
Yeah.
Same deal here.
I think
this is not
most of their hang-up was use dollars as your currency and not just random gold coins.
I don't know, but
they did get that canceled eventually.
Yeah.
That's the Balatro dev's another one I'd like to get on the show at some point, but
I've tried. They haven't answered.
They're very well. I mean, the guy himself is very private.
Not only private, but he's been very busy.
Not just I haven't just tried the Balatro developer. I've tried their publisher. No luck there either. Like, believe me, the idea did come to mind. So, but putting that aside, Slots and Daggers, go pick it up. I think you'll enjoy it. So with that in mind, that'll about do it for this game. Be sure to tune in after the break, as Petty Fan will be reviewing Romancing Saga Minstrel Song Remastered International.